That's why I call individuals nowadays no longer peasants, they're fiat slaves. You're slave to something that was created imaginarily by another person, putting a little $ carrot in front of you. By the age of 65, you'll be able to retire and you'll be happy, but give me 40 years of your life.
Luke Belmar,
a 28-year-old entrepreneur, investor, and internet personality
who took the internet by storm with his success in digital advertising, e-commerce, and investing in crypto and NFTs.
What e-commerce taught me was a few foundational skills. One is that marketing and distribution are more important than the product. If you have a great product, but nobody sees it, you're fucked. Number two, sales. If you want to make money, you have to sell.
Why are you so bullish on Pudgy Penguins?
I'm an equity shareholder in Pudgy. It was not an investment in the project. It was me betting on Luca.
Do you think university is a scam?
Absolutely. Imagine being in a scenario where I'm a business and I've convinced my entire population that in order to get a job, you have to go through me. Now you have all these motherfuckers that have more degrees than a thermostat and have no real experience. And if you can adapt your mindset to understand that money is a lagging indicator of success. The money that you get today isn't because you did something today. The moment you stop doing those things, then the future gets corrupted.
How can someone become a contrarian investor?
Develop your own investing thesis, understanding that investing isn't gambling. When you don't overspend and you don't operate out of a place of greed or operate out of a place of need, you can start making better value-based decisions.
Let's talk about investing.
We have like Monad and different projects that are in that ecosystem. They're absolutely going to skyrocket. I see Monad going to like $30 to $50 billion valuation.
Is there another crypto project or community that you're super bullish on?
My answer to that is
okay. Do you want to tell people how we got here today? Because it's a really cool story. It's a really interesting story.
It's an interesting story. So long story short, you hit me up in the DMs and you're like, yo, let's chop it up on my podcast. I'd seen some of your clips. You'd had Luca, which is one of my business partners, on here. I saw that you had some dope people and I was like, yeah, but then you also had some people I'd met, you know, I'd talked a little bit of shit about me. So I'm like, should I give this guy the time of day? And then you're like, bro, no, it wasn't, it's out of context. Don't take it too seriously. I'm like, all right, sounds good. Let's chop it up. So here we are today, bro.
Yeah. Also, I'm super excited to have you, man. So maybe as a start, we are still in January 2024.
Yes.
It's the first month of the year. And you wrote to your followers, 2024 is about getting wealthy in finance, health, mindset, relationships. This is the year of abundance in all areas of life. Do you think it's possible to master all of these at the same time, especially when you haven't made it yet?
Define made it. I define made it simply by being alive and by believing that you can become better, by having hope. I think that that's the first step. I think if you just have the perspective that you have opportunity to develop, I think that it's possible, you know, because when you begin to think about wealth by definition, you know, you have this concept, people are like, oh, this is a wealthy man or this is a wealthy family, but they're only talking about money. And wealth by definition isn't money alone, it's abundance. So what are the areas of your life that you're supposed to figure out or continue developing in order to develop this wealthy, well-rounded life? And this idea of, well, are you going to always get to the place of mastery? No, right? There's always somebody that's going to have more money. There's always going to be somebody that's more ripped. There's always going to be somebody that has a better looking girl. It's just inevitable that there's always somebody that's going to have potentially some perspectives or some aspects of their life that are better than yours. But I think having that focus of not being one dimensional, of being like, because you were telling me, you know, hey, dude, I was in business, I traveled the world, lived in all these super mega metropolis, and then I went back home and my health was fucked. So it's like, were you wealthy? You had all these experiences, all these things, but you had a foundational thing that wasn't in check. So I think just having the mental kind of parameters of understanding that you don't have to neglect your health in order to make money. You don't have to not talk to your mom or your parents for 2 years because you're hustling and grinding in the business. No, there's a place of balance, and that's where I would define wealth.
That's really interesting because, I mean, if we were where we are today, we might have come across a podcast that Naval Ravikant released in 2019 or 18, which is...
The one with Joe?
So basically, he did one kind of like on his own based on all his tweets, which is how to get rich
without getting lucky.
without getting lucky, right? Exactly. And then he went on Joe, and then and that's how I discovered him, right? Through Joe. And then I went to this first podcast, which is 3 hours and a half. And one of the key points there is money is not going to make you happy, but it's going to help you get to a kind of stage of life where you can then focus on what really matters. And so what he advises is you should kind of make yourself almost miserable to make money as quickly as possible to then get onto the real things in life. But it's not really what you're saying.
Well, I wouldn't say misery, but I would say, how can I make the most amount of money expending the least amount of time? Because time is the valuable asset that allows you to then explore other things. And if you're every single day expending 10, 12 hours just working to make money, then you're neglecting every potential other area of life that is beneficial. You know, I was doing some research as to how the feudal ages kind of operated, and the peasants and the feudal lords and the kings. And you begin to look at the work schedule of the peasants. These motherfuckers only worked 150 days out of the year. They didn't work 300 days out of the year like society teaches us today. So you have the peasants, the working class, by definition, peasant means just working class, back in the day, only working half of the year. So here we are as fiat slaves working 300 days out of the year, assuming that money is the most important thing. When it's all said and done, how much money do you actually need in order to live a wealthy, highly successful, fruitful life? Not a ton of money. You don't have to have billions of dollars to get there.
What's your answer to that?
My answer to that is figure out a level of comfort that matches your lifestyle. And it depends on everybody,
Absolutely.
right? And then don't overspend. Don't get to the place where you spend because you want to compare yourself to others, and don't fall for the trap of consumerism. If you become a consumerist, you're always going to have to make money in order to spend. But if you're a producer and not a spender, then you're focusing on how can I create things of value in the marketplace that eventually allow for opportunity and money to flourish.
So essentially become a producer and live below your means, which is kind of true freedom. Because if you live below your means,
you don't have to worry.
You're never going to worry. Exactly. You talked about how do I make as much as possible by spending as least time as possible? What are a few answers to that? For example, in this podcast again with Naval, he talks about leverage, right? Talks about financial leverage, human leverage, so human capital, and then you have obviously the one that's like the best today. I mean, code and media.
Yes, I agree. So I was actually with Meow, the co-founder of Jupiter Exchange, at dinner today, and we were talking about what is the single most important super weapon that an entrepreneur can have, and it's leverage, right? And money gives you leverage. So my opinion is some people will value money more than I. What are these individuals? Usually the ones that don't have a lot of money. So I can give them money in exchange for their time and in exchange for their energy. So these people will help me accomplish my goals and my dreams. But now, like Naval says, it gets even crazier because now you can have little bots running around working 24/7. They don't get tired. They don't disobey. They don't clock out. They don't lie about their timesheet. They actually perform, and you can backtrack all of their effort and all of their work, and they can work 24/7. So leverage your money, your resources, your connections in order to automate as many areas of life, both with people and AI bot tools, in order to get to the next level.
And this is what you're doing.
100%. Yeah. Capital Club now has about 160 employees full time. About 65 of them are media distribution teams. So I'll create a piece of content like this podcast, and it'll probably get, I don't know, over the next year, 100 million views. So I'll distribute that through short form content, and I have people that do that. So instead of being like, okay, let me go out and create 50 pieces of content, I'm just going to create one piece of high value content and then allow other people, through paying them, to distribute it and utilize their resources, their time, their energy, and their attention towards my goal.
You said 160 people, right?
Yeah.
What's your approach? Because for me, what I really realized is, and it's completely linked to this notion of leverage, but also fixed versus variable costs. And when I made this change in my businesses, it changed everything. Full-time employees versus contractors, or kind of like remote teams that are hired by the job versus by their time, right? And so if you do that, everything becomes variable and much less risky.
Yes.
How do you approach? Because I think it's more of You're what, 28, 29?
Yeah, 20.
That's like an approach that's much more like from our generation. Whereas, for example, the first company I built in London, like 25 people, I wanted, because I was in the old mindset, the old Swiss mindset. So I was like, I want Swiss quality, which is the freaking most expensive people on earth. And I want them full time because I want the pride of saying, hey, I'm giving a job to these people and participating to their retirement and all that stuff. But then you have all this freaking stress, you know, and it was a consulting business. So it's like the worst type of business, unscalable. And then when I started to make the switch, I realized, man, like this is such a no-brainer. And then you can apply it to anything, right?
So I look at it a little bit different. I look at when I pay people or when I hire people, I'm investing into them, right? So I'm investing into their self-development. I'm investing into their progress. I'm investing into their education. I'm investing into their experience. So how foolish would it be of me to build somebody up for 2 years as a contractor or as somebody that's a freelancer, and then they're going to charge more for their services later on. They're going to go work for somebody else, or they're going to go build their own stuff. I want to create an ecosystem where my people can grow within my organization. It's so hard to find top tier talent, but if you can find top tier talent, I want them to come work for me, and I want them to come work with me. So that means sometimes you have to give them the freedom to operate and to create. Steve Jobs, I think, said, you know, the job of the CEO, the job of the business owners to recruit talent. And if you find A players, just get out of the fucking way and let them operate. So when you see Capital Club, when you see, you know, billions of views online, that's not just Luke. It's people that are super, super developed, helping me accomplish certain goals and dreams. So I see it as, yeah, I have 160 full-time staff members. There is a lot of headaches and overheads and things like that, but they're all fixed cost. And that's one side. 2, I see it as an investment into them long-term. And then 3, I never spend money that I don't have, right? And that's something that I always kind of pride my company of, is we always underspend so much from what we make, so that once again, like your personal expenses, you don't have that, oh, how can I get to the next paycheck? I don't want to live that way. I don't want to have to go and raise money or get investors because I can't make it. So I scale in proportion to our income.
Do you think that A players stay or go on to leave and build their own thing once they realize how much personal leverage they have, right?
Depends, because not everybody that's an A player is an entrepreneur, or not everybody that's an A player is a self-starter, and not everybody that's an A player wants to go out and do their own thing, or can take on the risk of going on and, you know, funding a business, building a business, or being a CEO or an executive. Some people are just phenomenal videographers, right? Some people are just phenomenal human resource managers. Some people are just phenomenal accountants. So I just want to polish them, refine them, and then give them a value ladder of scalability within my organization. Eventually, that obviously for the high tier individuals leads to shares, leads to options in the company, but that's just inevitable, because the goal isn't to own 100% of zero, right? If you own 100% of something that's not worth anything, cool, you're the only guy involved, but you don't have shit. So sometimes you have to share, and that means splitting the pie so that the pie can get bigger. I'm all about sharing, bro.
That's such a key concept, actually. And you have often, when you start companies, you might have like 2 or 3 co-founders, and then you have this ego at play, right? Who has more, and like, why would we split equally? And you're like, man, first, it's all about not what happened before, it's all about what happens in the future. And second, 33% of like something much bigger is worth much more than 100% of something much smaller. Absolutely.
And it's also the energy and time thing, right? So if I have co-founders, now I have 2, like I have more heads, I have more energy, more time. And that's going, if they're the right people, that's going to accelerate growth and accelerate development, and accelerate the achievement of your goals a lot faster.
Absolutely. So you said you have 160 employees, you're 28, which is really impressive. You've done a lot of pretty amazing things since probably in your 20s, right? Since
I started my entrepreneurial journey in e-commerce in 2016. I started buying my first Bitcoin, $588, 2015, but it was, you know, tinkling and playing around. But my entrepreneurial swing and actually becoming a proper entrepreneur, 2018.
Where does this hunger and huge fire in the belly come from?
When you're broke, brother, you have nothing to lose, dude. I don't want to live a life of regrets. like I said, I was talking with Meow, and I said, dude, imagine being on your deathbed. And cool, everybody thinks that you're successful. Cool, everybody thinks that you have a lot of money, but you yourself, you look at yourself and you're like, oh, I could have done more, or I didn't go for it. Dude, I just don't want to deal with that shit. I don't want to be in a situation where I regret the fact that I gave up the gift of life to settle for mediocrity or to settle for less. And money, like we talked about, gives you access to opportunities. So talking about Switzerland, for example, if I didn't have money, I wouldn't be able to visit Zermatt. I wouldn't be able to visit Geneva. I wouldn't be able to visit these incredible, beautiful places. So I want to experience life. And in order to experience the fullness of life, I just have to work a lot harder than the average individual in order to experience more things.
Absolutely. And the I don't want to have regrets. I mean, one of the key things that we're all looking for in our, probably in our life, right? But when you're a high achiever since early 20s, you're like, okay, how do I get happy, truly happy? And in the beginning, we kind of like mistakenly think that it's the money or the businesses or the girls or all this shit, right? But then you realize, and I think it was Andrew Tate who was saying that, which I don't agree with a lot of what he says, but he also talks a lot of truth, right? And one of these things was something like, when you work really hard on something, it's not about the result. It's knowing that you're giving your best will make you happy, right? And will make you have no regret. And it's much less about the actual result of like, was I successful? Rather than just, I gave my best, right? And if I give my best and I'm in the hustle, and actually you see it, right? When you build businesses, the best moments are when you're struggling.
Yes.
And you're having these goals. And when you kind of like reach these big milestones, could be first million or first 10 million or another kind of business goal, right? You realize, fuck, that's it. Like that's not like the thing that really makes you happy. So
I think people have like short-term goals, and many times they attribute happiness to that achievement of that goal instead of that goal just being another stepping stone to their development, and understand that, dude, life is long.
It's kind of infinite. It's an infinite game.
It's always, you're going to have to wake up the next day. You're going to have to perform. If you don't exercise, you're going to lose your physique. If you don't continue taking care of your family, if you don't continue elevating, if you don't continue leveling up, what you don't use, you lose. And that's the thing about life, is the people that are unsuccessful think that somehow you achieve one level of success and then you stop.
Yeah.
And then it's, sit under a palm tree and chill.
When I get
it doesn't work that way.
When I get to my first million, I change my life, which I always say, if you would change your life when you reach a certain number, you should change your life already now, because it means that you're not going to be happy that day. That's not going to change anything.
Yes. Right? And because it's a mindset play, bro.
Yeah.
It's a mindset play. And if you can adapt your mindset to understand one very basic principle, which is every single day, if you were to evaluate your life like building a house, every single day you get to lay one brick. How are you going to lay that brick? Are you going to lay it with precision, accuracy, love, care? It's your house.
Yeah.
Like, why? You're not going to build it like shit. Like, why would you build it like shit? It's where you're going to live. It's where you're going to reside. So every day I get to set up a block, and not every day I do it right. Not every day I do it well. But if you go with the intention of being like, hey, I'm responsible for my life. I'm responsible for my actions, the good stuff, the bad stuff. I get to establish and set this brick for today, and understand that tomorrow I'm going to have to set the brick again. The brick that I set up yesterday, right, in my life to continue building, doesn't matter. What I do today counts. And I made a post saying that money is a lagging indicator of success.
Yeah, I saw that.
And money is a lagging indicator of your efforts. So the money that you get today isn't because you did something today. We're here today, not because of what we did today, but because of what we did over the last couple of years that led up to this moment. Absolutely. And the moment you stop doing those things, then the future gets corrupted.
You don't see it directly. That's the thing. And in the beginning, when you get successful, the first time, you can become complacent, right? We talked about that with Luca on the podcast, actually. And we probably all made this mistake, or I don't know for you, but like most of us. And then you're just there like, oh, if I just do nothing, it continues to freaking rain, right?
Yeah, it happened to me, bro. It happened
until
to
it doesn't,
me. Yeah.
and then you get completely fucked. And then, anyway. So that's a super interesting one, actually. I think even Jeff Bezos talks about that. We're building, what we're doing today, he says in business, is going to happen in 3 years. So it's kind of like an extreme version of that.
And it's also, it doesn't just apply to business and to life. If I'm the captain of a ship and I know the destination where I'm going, 99% of the time, I won't see the port of destination. I won't see it. I have to understand that if I just travel and I do what I'm supposed to do, eventually I'm going to get there. The captain doesn't say, well, just because I can't see the port of destination, I'm not going to leave. I'm just going to stay here and wait. No. With vision, right, and understanding and belief and knowing where you want to go, you set the trail, you set the path, and you work towards it every single day.
You talked about these bricks, right, that you're kind of setting in a certain way. And you grew up in Argentina,
Yes.
right? So we all grew up in different places. You grew up in Argentina, I grew up in Switzerland. And the place where we live, the environment, the culture we grow in, obviously is going to impact and limit our beliefs
Yes.
and our self-beliefs. What's acceptable, what's not, what's possible, what's not. How does the young Argentinian, Singaporean, American, or even Swiss teenager, or let's say, early 20, deprogram himself and sort of, as you'd say, like get out of the matrix to set himself up for insane success?
So first is understanding that you're not what your religion tells you are. You're not what your parents tell you are. You're not what your friends tell you are. In fact, you're not even what you tell yourself you are, because you don't even truly understand your limitless potential. So when you live in a situation whereby you're limited by the opinions and the insecurities and the projections of other people, what you're doing is you're limiting your potential and your growth for self-development. And the first part is understanding that you can become whoever you want to become. If you want to become successful, you will become successful. If you want to become rich, you will become rich. If you want to become literate, you will become literate. If you want to become well-traveled, you will become well-traveled. But you can't want something and then do another 100 things that are an antithesis or completely opposite to the goal that you want. So if I want to get rich, well, I'm going to have to pay the price. If I want to travel the world, I'm going to have to pay the price. And most people, they want something, they wish things, but they don't truly want them and then work towards them. So know where you want to go, know what you want, and then don't want other 100 things that are completely opposite to the achievement of that goal. So you don't have to have a ton of goals. Establish, 2, 3 goals, things that are easily executable and easily achievable. You don't have to go out and make $1 million tomorrow. No, relax. What is the next book about business and leadership that you should read? Mm-hmm. How should you be working out and eating and taking care of your health? How do you treat your relationship with your mom and your dad and your siblings? Well, that's going to easily translate into how you treat your business partners. So how you do the small things is how you do the big things. And like I said before, you just master building that foundation, building those little bricks day by day. And once you zoom back out, you'll see the beautiful creation, the beautiful artwork that you've built with your life. And it'll be a masterpiece for everybody to observe and be like, this guy lived a great life.
And maybe to kind of take off the magic, right? Oh, this person is so successful, or this person is so fit. There's a process behind everything.
Yes.
There's a process behind everything. You want to get fit, like you can count your macros and train 4 or 5, times a week go with a PT. You want to build wealth. There is a process to build wealth. You want to build a business, you want to build a personal brand. There's a process behind every freaking thing. And it's kind of boring once you understand that, because you're like, man, I'm just repeating the same shit every day. But that's where most people kind of fail, because we're all looking for like the thrill and the thrill of the new thing. But actually all these things that we need to do to like get successful in one area or another of life is just based on processes.
The process and in the preparation, you have to, if you want to become a billionaire, if you want to become a millionaire, you have to develop the philosophies, the ideas, the habits, the work ethic of this type of persona, of this character, in order to then become that type of individual. Abraham Lincoln famously said, if I had 6 hours to cut down a tree, I would spend the first 5 sharpening the axe. So it's not about just the hustle, and it's not just about the grind, it's about the preparation, it's about the effort, it's about the dedication. Yeah, you see Usain Bolt, right, on stage with the gold medal. You see Michael Phelps on stage with the gold medal, but you don't see jumping in the pool for fucking 10 years. You don't see having to run sprints in the middle of Jamaica in the heat for decades. No, you don't see that. But it's easy to criticize, the people sitting in the red carpet or standing on the red carpet from the motherfucking carpet of your own home when you have really nothing to do or you haven't accomplished anything. So it's understanding that it's a process, understand that there's a lot of sacrifice, brother, involved in becoming somebody great. And it's going to require literally your life force energy to materialize these dreams into reality.
It's really interesting that we talk about that because I wrote a bunch of things around that. Public rewards versus private practice. So I think it's today or 2 days ago, there was Tony Robbins on a podcast called My First Million Podcast, which we all know. And he talked about the concept of it's what you do in the dark that puts you in the light. And then he gives the example. You gave some example. He gives the example of Stephen Curry, 500 shots a day, 3,500 shots a week, 180,000 shots a year, 2.7 million shots in 15 years of practice. Out of 16,000 game shots with 3,500 makes, he's one of the best of all time. Less than 0.1% of his shots are seen in a game. Can you give some personal examples that show that success all comes down to obsession, sacrifices, practicing day in and day out, being consistent, patient, and persistent?
Yes. I would probably attribute it at the beginning of my career. I would say e-commerce, building an e-commerce business has taught me foundational skills that then translate into everything else that you do. So people say, well, I'm going to go do one job like sales, or I'm going to go do e-commerce, or I'm going to go build a digital marketing agency, or I'm going to build a data analytics company. But what are the skills that you're learning? No, you're not just building a data analytics company. You're learning how to become a CEO. You're learning how to become a leader. You're learning how to become a well-polished individual. You're learning how to balance a checkbook. You're learning how to balance emotions. You're learning how to balance your employees' emotions. So what e-commerce taught me was a few foundational skills. One is that marketing and distribution are more important than the product. So if you have a great product, but nobody sees it, you're fucked. It doesn't matter what business you're in. It doesn't matter if you're in crypto. It doesn't matter if you're in finance. If nobody knows what you have to sell, nobody's going to see it. So one of the essential skills that I learned is I need to learn how to garner, manage, and distribute my product. Number one. Number two, sales, right? Absolutely. If you want to make money, you have to sell. You have to sell. Now, in order to make money and sell, there's 3 areas that you need to master. Number one, you need to be the best at what you do. You don't want to get hired for being cheap. You want to get hired for being the best. Number two is what you do in sales needs to be in high demand. You don't want to be selling Eskimo, an Eskimo ice. People are like, I can sell anything to anybody. Yeah, but that necessarily doesn't mean that you're going to be able to make a ton of money. So what you need to do is needs to be in high demand. You need to be the best at what you do. And then finally, you need to be irreplaceable, right? Can you be replaced by AI? Can you be replaced by somebody else? That's a question that needs to be answered. So I figured out in sales, I need to be the best at what I do. So if I'm selling a product or a service, people need to see me as a person of reputable standards. I need to be in high demand. So what I'm going to be selling needs to be in an evergreen niche. We saw so many, hype niches or themes come up in crypto over the last couple of years, all sorts of shit, but they were just fads, right? It wasn't sustainable because it wasn't in high demand. And then finally, you need to be, like I said, the best at what you do in high demand, and you need to be irreplaceable. So can somebody replace you? So when you look at your skill sets, you need to ask yourself, well, what now can AI not replace? So what are you building today that AI can't replace? I was telling recently another podcast host, I had the privilege to ask a couple questions to one of the co-founders of OpenAI many years ago before I launched Capital Club. And he told me, I asked him, hey, should I build an AI company? He's like, no, don't build an AI company. Build an AI-proof company. Build something that AI will never be able to replace. Because he's like, you're going to go building AI with who? Against all the MIT kids, Stanford kids, against all these nerds, all these think tanks. So you're going to have a very hard time. But if you can establish a moat as to what is something that AI cannot replace, like self-development, community, personal growth, then you have the ability to sell in a way that AI can't replace. So marketing, distribution, and sales are the 2 kind of beacons and pillars that I've established as essential necessities for winning in business.
And on the top of that, authenticity.
For sure, bro.
Because a lot of people think that being good at sales is being good at bullshitting, right? The thing is, if you do that, you'll get people for the first round, but they'll never come back, and you're gonna ruin your reputation.
What I tell people, just to follow that, is if you sell something to somebody that they don't need, you're not a good salesman. You're a con artist. So when you sell, you need to sell ethically, and you need to sell understanding that you're there to serve people.
Absolutely. Basically, how can I provide you as much value as possible? And that's my problem. Not ask for anything because you make the assumption that, but the smart people, they'll understand, like, oh man, you're giving me something, I'll give you something back, right? It's all about providing so much value and doing it in a just, I'm not asking you for anything. Like, ideally, you're in a position where you don't even need, you're like, oh, this is all bonus, right? And again, I mean, I don't want to talk about Naval too much, but he's talking about using authenticity to escape competition. He's saying basically, if you use authenticity, you're never going to have anyone that you're competing with, because no one can compete with yourself, right?
I agree. I mean, most people compete instead of creating, but that's because most people don't want to become the best version of themselves. They want to become what they perceive as a better version than themselves, which is what they see in somebody else be or what somebody else posts to be. When you have the same capabilities, you have the same potential, you just have to work for it extremely, extremely hard. And what I like about the internet is that the internet doesn't take bullshit, right? So now as the creator economy begins to develop, and as you know, people spend time online, things become more transparent. So people will be able to identify authenticity, they'll be able to identify truth, and then they'll be able to identify bullshitters.
Probably blockchain will help in that, because you have all these AI.
For sure. Because
one of the key problem now is like AI. We don't even realize, most of us, but we're in 2024, there is US elections this year. And there was, I think it was Raoul Pal saying, during the US elections, you're going to have crazy arguments with your neighbors, your family members, people you love, just because of AI piece of contents that are going to be targeted at you to make you go crazy, right? And one thing where blockchain can really help is to prove whether all these piece of contents are actually true or not.
The only issue with that, bro, is when you start playing with the humanization and the digitalization of personal identities. So it's like, oh, well, now we need to make sure that whoever's on Instagram or whoever's on Twitter is actually a real human. So now you have to submit your ID. And that's where shit gets kind of crazy. But I look forward to this future, bro. It's going to be fucking wild, because now you don't even know who's commenting. For all you know, Zuckerberg's got all these motherfucking profiles running 24/7, just blasting comments to cause engagement, cause triggers, and for all you know, it's just a troll farm.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Absolutely.
And it's happening. It's happening. I mean, it happens all the time. I think there was an intelligence company out of Israel called Project Judas, and they had 30,000 Twitter accounts, and they would kind of control narratives through those Twitter accounts. And they're not real people. It's just a couple individuals. Now with AI, it's going to be super powered. And I agree with you, bro. It's going to fucking break a lot of people's minds, bro. It's going to be crazy, dude. Fuck. I didn't even take that into perspective for the election, bro.
It's going to be crazy.
It's going to be wild.
There was already, I mean, Trump won like thanks to data and social media, but it was not like advanced AI like that. So now it's going to be this, but on steroids.
Wow, bro.
So we talk about how much you need sacrifices, patience, consistency, persistence to make it, right? When you're starting to build a company. The problem is millennials and Gen Z, they're impatient as fuck. Because we live in a world where we have everything at our fingertips, right? Coffee, food, dates, porn, anything we want just at the click of a button. But the really good things in life, a career, a relationship, a business, good health, wealth, they all come from daily compounding, right? Of small actions. What's your message to our impatient generation today if they want to be truly successful tomorrow?
Be impatient towards the good things. Be impatient towards doing the good things every single day. Be impatient towards waking up and going to the gym. Be impatient to get on your sales calls and close those clients. Be impatient to pick up that book and read. Instead of being impatient about the results, be impatient about the input. because you can't control the output. You can control how many seeds you plant. You can't figure out which seed is going to grow and how many apples are going to come from that apple tree. You can't control that. You can't control the day you're going to become a millionaire. If you say, I'm going to become a millionaire in 1 year, good luck, motherfucker, because if that year rolls around and you're not a millionaire, you're going to feel like shit. You're going to feel unsuccessful. But if you're like, my success is determined by my input and not my output, dude, being patient as a motherfucker, getting that input, grinding, understanding that money, success is a lagging indicator. So hustle, do what you have to do on the input, and then let by natural law, which is a principle that applies to the universe, right? Action causes reaction, input causes output. Focus on what you can control, be impatient about becoming great, and the rest will play out.
It's essentially what Gary Vee says when he says micro speed, macro patience. It's exactly that.
That's very good.
I'm Swiss. In Switzerland, we don't talk about money. We don't even know or dare to ask our parents how much they make.
Really?
You don't do that, no?
Wow.
That's how much taboo the topic of money is in Switzerland. At least, might have changed now, but I mean, I'm not old, but like, you know, I don't know how much my father makes or how much he made. Like, and you don't ask that, right? You talk a lot about money, and there is a lot of hate towards men who preach about making money. Why do you think openly talking about money and about making money is so important?
Because money is just a tool. So I talk about money just like I talk about health, just like I talk about self-development and picking up a book and learning topics that you enjoy. Money's just a tool. Money's just a weapon that you utilize to accomplish your goals, but it's essential. And most people have no literacy when it comes to money. I was doing some research as to how the Bible was translated into English. When John Wycliffe, began translating the Bible, he was persecuted. He was persecuted by the clergymen that had the Bible in Latin, and he was persecuted by the Pope, and he was persecuted by the religious political powers. Why? Because at that time, religion was the language of the elite. And it's what kept people in slavery. It's what kept people in bondage and in fear. Today, now that, these spiritual texts have been translated and anybody can digest them, the tool of suppression is no longer religion, it's finance. So finance has now become the language of the elite. There's a reason the tax code is so complicated. There's a reason why they don't teach you money in school. There's a reason why these things are complicated. And it's not because they have to be complicated. It's because they're designed to keep you away from understanding that there are valuable parts of life that you need to master. So when you understand that language is also correlated to your ability to understand, what my goal is to simplify these concepts so that people don't fear them and that they can understand them in a very basic way so that they don't have to depend on a tax accountant, so that they don't have to depend on somebody to tell them how to make money.
A banker.
Exactly.
That takes massive
they're all the middlemen. They're all the middlemen to God. In God we trust.
Absolutely.
But go through me, motherfucker. That's what they tell you.
That's a really compelling one, because I'm in the banking sector. It's, if you start to, for me, like the journey was since I was probably 21 and 22 when I started the first company. I wanted to retire before 30, right? Whatever that means, a certain number. So I was like, how do I retire before 30? And then we had some employees and we had, a pension, because you have to invest in a pension for your employees. So I was like, how do I, with my pension and with other people's pension, invest this money to retire as quickly as possible? And then you start from there to understand how the entire system is made, that every pension,
it's fucked.
bro. In the UK, you have this self-investment pension plan, SIPP,
I know,
right?
The government invested on your behalf.
So
fucked,
then you
bro.
understand the whole thing, which is you're like, okay, how do I start? I'm going to start about reading about timeless principle of investing. There's not that, they all say the same, right? The little common sense of investing, a bunch of these books. Also, Tony Robbins, he wrote a really good one, which is Money Master the Game and Unshakable, and very simple ones after the great financial crisis to help millennials invest and to make them understand that it's actually not hard. It's just made harder by the ones who need to take a fees, right? And so
you need the middleman to God.
Exactly.
And the person that can be the middleman to God will charge you, in order to get to heaven. And when you realize that you don't need a middleman in order to talk to God, and you don't need a middleman in order to learn finance, and you don't need a middleman in order to do anything, the middleman gets upset. And now the middleman not only controls finance, but they also control the school system, because they're the ones that fund the school system, and they're the ones that fund the universities, and they're the ones that fund pharma, and they're the ones that fund food. So now the entire narrative is controlled by this centralized group of people. That's why I call individuals nowadays no longer peasants. They're fiat slaves, because you're slave to something that was created imaginarily by another person that controls you and is expending your life force energy and putting a little $ carrot in front of you, dingling, and saying, by the age of 65, you'll be able to retire and you'll be happy, but give me 40 years of your life. It's fucked. So if I can, in some way, shape, or form, kind of at least trigger these conversations for people and be like, maybe let me look at the Federal Reserve Act of 1913. Maybe let me figure out why we got off the gold standard and who was actually involved in this process. Let me figure out why Satoshi's narrative of immutable money is actually compelling. And yeah, maybe I don't have to become a scholar when it comes to finances. Maybe I don't have to become somebody that actually understands the ins and outs of everything. But the last thing you want to be is ignorant, because in ignorance, you can get fooled. And most people are ignorant. And what I think sometimes people get upset at is the fact that you're showcasing their ignorance. And sometimes the truth hurts. But I'm willing to offend in order to save a few.
What do you think is the single biggest limiting factor that prevents most people from taking full control of their finance and their future?
Most people blame others. Most people fear the consequences of being responsible for the good things and the bad things of their life. I often tell people, everyone is self-made, but only the successful will admit it. Because the unsuccessful person, they're self-made, but they won't admit it. They'll blame somebody else. They'll blame the imaginary thumb of the government. They'll blame the race. They'll blame the color of their skin, but they'll never look at themselves and be like, what did you not do? Because everybody's quick to be like, oh, well, I am successful. I built this company. But what about when you fucked up? What about when you were inferior, when you were a loser? Did you take accountability for those things? And most people, I think, are just not comfortable with assuming that responsibility. So creating an ethos where we can be vulnerable, creating an ethos where it's okay to fuck up, where it's okay to fail, is going to revolutionize and change through authenticity how people interact and how people talk. And what I often tell people is this fear of failure is induced into us. It's not natural. If you go to the school system, bro, imagine how fucked it is to go to a first grader and give them an F and tell them you failed. Or you know what, because you didn't apply this, and this, you have to stay back with, younger kids and you shame them. Bro, that's fucking degrading. So from the beginning, you're conditioned to not try. Because if you try, there's a chance that you're going to be penalized, and you don't want to be penalized. Nobody wants to be penalized. And then that translates to high school, that translates to university, that translates to the workplace, that translates to your interaction in your entire life. You just want to play it safe. And in that safety, it's all elusive, because at the end of the day, you're going to die. So we all end up being in the same situation because we all are going to end up dead. So there isn't any safety, because we're all going to end up 6 feet under. So if you're going to end up 6 feet under, there's nothing to stress about. There's nothing to worry.
Yeah. I think this is called equanimity, no?
Equanimity.
That's it, right? With the concept of like, don't look at the tree, look at the forest, right? Take a step back and then realize, man, why are we even stressing? I mean, easier said than done, right? But
it can't even be said, and it can't be done. It needs to be felt. And the equanimity is the calmness of the soul. Equanimity means the calmness of the soul. So when you, like Miyamoto Musashi famously said, with your spirit as high as Mount Fuji, you will see all things clearly. And when you can elevate your perspective and you can see that what people are doing, what people think about you, your failures and your wins, they're insignificant
No
when
one
you can
gives a
see it.
fuck.
Nobody cares,
But
brother.
before that, you need to go through the big failures and
Yes.
realize that nothing happened.
Yes.
Which most people will not go through because they're scared.
Yes.
And you're saying that one of the reason or the main reason they're scared is the education system where from young, also early on, it's basically black or white,
Yes.
right? It's failure or success.
Gold star or
Interesting.
red marker with an F.
Would you go as far as saying that, let's go into the education one because it's a very interesting one.
The education system was created by the Rockefeller Foundation under the Prussian school system, which was the idea of creating factory working bots that don't question, they don't do anything except obey. That's why the school system resembles the industrial era. You raise your hand in order to use the bathroom. There's an assembly line. The bell rings. Therefore, that's your break. That's your cue. You have to be operating just within your little dynamic. You can't explore. You're not supposed to collaborate. You're within your little area of work. This is what you do. But it not only resembles the industrial kind of era, but it also resembles the prison complex. Right? So you have the fluorescent lights, you have the locked rooms, you walk in a line, you go to the yard 1 hour of the day, and you only do it when the bell rings. Dude, can I just, when everybody clips it, all you have to do is look at what a cafeteria looks like in the United States school and look at a cafeteria prison. They look the same. So everything is conditioned from the moment you're young to absolutely create and prune you into being a fiat slave.
Which we all follow, right? We even getting out of this mindset of, and again, my Swiss side will be like, you don't have to be an entrepreneur to be like, it's not only about being an entrepreneur, right? You can be a consultant and be happy. You can be
you can even be
right?
an employee. It's not even about that. It's about understanding that what you've been conditioned to believe is a bullshit. What you've been conditioned to feel about reality, what you've been conditioned to understand is true, is not true, and that the systems, the beliefs that you've been given are not yours, and that you're not bound and limited to these things in order to become an individual that achieves greatness. Greatness isn't what Luke Belmar tells you greatness is. Success isn't what Luke Belmar tells you success is. What is your symphony of success? When you hear success, right, what does that mean to you? What does that look like for you? It looks different for you. It looks different for me. But pursue that path. Most people know, hey, I want to pursue something. I want to become somebody. But then because of the fear of failure, the fear of judgment, the fear of insecurities, and shame on all these motherfuckers online that talk shit, because the last thing you want to be doing is criticizing and insulting somebody for trying.
Absolutely.
When we're all just trying to make it. So why are you trying to hold the brother down? You know what I mean?
What about
crazy?
What about your parents? Because obviously your parents, I mean, I'm saying, when I say your, I mean like people's parents, right? My belief is that most parents only, even if they don't know how to communicate it, they truly love their kids.
Yes.
And they want the best for their kids, right?
But just because they want what's best for them, they don't know what is best, right? Just because somebody loves you doesn't necessarily mean they know what's best for you. And what I always tell people is, with your parents, people that have invested their life force energy into nurturing and raising you, especially if they love you. If they don't love you and they treat you like shit, fuck them, right? That's my point of view. But if they've actually empowered you, they've worked hard to help you elevate, they want to see what's best for you, prove them wrong, right? If they don't want to see you elevate, prove them wrong with your actions. Your parents aren't going to be upset if they see you waking up early, if they see you pursuing your dreams, if they see you being productive. If you're not doing anything, you're just playing Fortnite all day, being a lazy piece of shit, they're going to start questioning, well, what is this person doing with their life? And rightfully so. But I think when parents also understand, and a lot of them do, that you're actually being productive and you're putting forth a plan towards success, a lot of them will support it.
Yeah. Because ultimately they just want you to be happy, and they'll feel it and they'll see it if you're happy in whatever you're trying.
And you have to sell them on it. It goes back to what we talked about. You have to sell them, just like you have to sell your girl on staying with you, just like you have to sell your customers on hanging around. You have to sell sometimes your parents on them allowing you and blessing you to pursue different areas of life.
And worst case, if they still don't want it, there is still the possibility of saying, hey, I'll find a whatever shit job or just to not depend on you financially anymore, so I can do my own thing and you don't have a say anymore, right?
You know what? You know what's funny? It was the Thanksgiving of 2017, and I was remember in 2017. I think everybody was talking about crypto or Bitcoin, and it went up, and then it tanked or some shit.
Yeah.
I think that's where like the entire culture of, hey, during Thanksgiving, everybody talks about crypto and everybody tells their grandma to buy. I think it came from the 2017 bull run. But we were going around the table, and my mother asked me, she said, what are you grateful for? Right. My mother always asks that during Thanksgiving. What are you thankful for? And I said, I'm thankful for Bitcoin. And they laughed at me, right? They scoffed me. But last week I sent my mother a Bitcoin, right? And she no longer cares about whether she scoffed me or whether she thought Bitcoin or my gratitude towards it was a good thing or that I'm being thankful for it. She's just happy now that I'm successful, and now she gets to partake in that success. So sometimes you have to eat some shit. Sometimes you have to understand that your vision is your vision, and it was given to you. It wasn't given to your parents. So you don't need their validation. You don't need their approval. But if you're still in their household and you still, want their blessing, then prove them wrong through your actions and be diplomatic through a process of selling them into your vision through action, dedication, and respect.
This applies a lot to actually sales in business, right?
Yes.
Because let's say your clients are big corporations, so there's a lot of politics in there. Sometimes you know exactly what they need, but if you tell them what they need, they'll tell you to fuck off.
Yes.
So you will sell them what they want to hear. And once you got the project, then you come and you say, forget all the shit that I told you. Now we're going to do the real deal, right? And it's always, it's sales. It's just sales. Like everything is sales. It's true.
It's crazy. And if you can't sell your mama on letting you start an e-com store, then how are you going to sell anybody on giving you $1 million check to go start a business? Or how are you going to go sell something that's high tech? Or how are you going to sell anybody on anything else? Yeah. Everything starts in the basics, right? Everything starts in the beginning. And if you can be diplomatic with your family and bring them onto your vision, so be it. But at the same time, the path of success and the path of entrepreneurship and the path of greatness is lonely. And you have to be willing to be alone in the process to getting to the top. And I realized in my life and my main perspective in life wasn't to become successful. My perspective of life has become to pursue truth. And when I told God, hey, I will sacrifice my family, my relationships, even my life for the pursuit of truth, then that commitment and that dedication carried me through any insecurities, any doubt, any loneliness, and eventually all these things played out well.
So you would say that you're still lonely?
No.
Often?
Because I can be alone and not be lonely because I'm with myself.
How do you get to that stage? Because for me,
spend a lot of, when you're in the car, turn off that motherfucking radio. Be in your thoughts. Ask yourself, why is it that you do what you do? Ask yourself, why do you wake up in the morning and do what you do? Why is it that you pursue the goals and the dreams that you pursue? Have these conversations. Be comfortable in your own skin. If you're uncomfortable, ask yourself, why is it that you're experiencing these things? Why is it that you are in a situation where you don't like to be by yourself? Because if you are with yourself, it doesn't mean you have to be lonely. You don't need other people. Because when you're on your deathbed, dude, nobody's going to be there. It's just you, yourself, figuring out, did I live a successful life? Did I do what I say I was going to do? You can't point fingers. You can't say, oh, because this person said this or this person said that. No. You're fully accountable for your life. And when it's all said and done, it's all up to you. So why not live that way?
What do you do concretely with that? Do you meditate? Do you pray?
I spend a lot of time just thinking.
So you have like in your agenda or calendar, which is probably crazy full.
No, it's empty.
You have some, it's empty. You have like some.
So empty, bro. There's like nothing on my calendar because that was like my perspective. Like I just have like my regular calls for the week, which is like my regular calls. But besides that, as the creative in the business, I can't have a schedule.
Absolutely. Okay.
I need to be able to create an environment where I can just free flow. And it's not for everybody, but in my space, it's just like empty schedule and just spend as much time thinking, as much time in my thoughts, and as much time as possible questioning my actions so that I understand why I'm actually doing what I'm doing.
You talked about pursuing truth
Mm.
and thinking basically back to what you've done. You went to college
No,
briefly?
dropped
No?
out. Yeah.
Dropped out, right? I want to dive
I went
a
to
bit.
multiple universities, tested different things, 1 quarter here, 1 quarter there, but it never suited me because the teachers were kind of losers, and I sensed that from the get go. I'll tell you, bro. I had 2 teachers. 2 teachers convinced me that school was shit. My first one was a communications teacher. Didn't know how to fucking talk. So I was like, how's this person going to teach me communication? And then the second one was at the second university, an international business professor that had never been overseas. So I'm like, how are you going to teach me how to become an international entrepreneur? You're talking about macroeconomics, microeconomics, but are you telling me about culture? Are you telling me about how to interact with Chinese people when I actually go to China and how to broker a deal? You can't learn that unless you're there. So I was like, fuck this. I got to go learn this, actually get in the trenches.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I was kind of also the motherfucker I completed the whole like bachelor, but I was always thinking, especially when I did my master's, I did 2 internship, 3 months each in between bachelor and master. I go do my master and I realized that I have more work experience after 6 months of freaking internship than the PhD professor in front. And we had an entrepreneurship class, 14 sessions. And at the very end of this entrepreneurship class, 14 sessions, she's like, hey, anyone has question? And I'm like, she had done a PhD in entrepreneurship, never built a business, and she was an entrepreneurship professor. And I'm like, do you really believe we can teach entrepreneurship? Like, and same, I always thought, man,
That's
like,
so fucked, bro.
Like, I don't disrespect you, maybe because of my Swiss values, but I'm like, how can you teach me something when you've never freaking done it before?
Yes.
Right? And if you think about it, the education system is completely outdated today, right?
Yes.
And so there is different takes on that. Do you think university is a scam?
Absolutely. Because it's a business, right? The university is a business. So in certain countries, you have public university, but somebody's paying for it. Maybe it's the government, but somebody's paying for it. In the US, university is expensive as fuck. Imagine being in a scenario where I'm a business, right? And I have convinced my entire population, right, that in order to get a job, you have to go through me. Once again, it's the middleman to the workforce. It's the middleman. So now you're like, well, I can't develop skills. I need a degree. And you have all these motherfuckers that have more degrees than a thermostat and have no real experience. So then they go and you hire all these super intelligent dudes, quote unquote, but have no values. They have no self-esteem because they haven't actually accomplished anything. Not only that, they're super inexperienced and they're not even worth having around. They're entitled. They're arrogant.
That's true.
They think that because you took a couple tests in school, that you can, bro, the marketplace will fuck you up, dude.
Actually, because you're being told at university, you are the leaders of tomorrow. You are the leaders of tomorrow. And then you end up with so many people with papers, right? With university papers, that we have this thing called academic inflation, where you've gone through all these studies, you might have taken a loan, and then it's hard to find a job. And if you find a job, the job is going to pay you like shit. No one will give a fuck about you, right? So yeah, it's true. Like, I mean, I would also argue that when you start your first company, especially if you're young, like no one gives a fuck either, right? And it's hard. But
why? And it depends, right? Like you have certain things that are worth learning. But here's the thing, even medicine. Let me talk to you about this medicine shit. Sometimes I would go into these lecture halls. I went to this veterinary school once to kind of have an understanding as to their nutrition, because I was very curious as to who ran the nutrition classes. And I figured out that Purina, right, the dog food company, which is basically poison for animals, they were sponsoring all of the university's food supply in exchange for running their nutrition class. So they're conditioning all the doctors to say, hey, if you're going to sell food to your dog, make sure it's our brand. So they're being brainwashed into, one, feeling like they're sources of authority, two, not realizing that information is tailored and curated by the person that is funding that university, and three, just look at the statistics. There's a reason why the second or third leading cause in the United States of mortality is medical malpractice. It's doctors not knowing what they're doing. And that's not even getting into COVID.
which would probably be like a 3-hour podcast on its own, but linked to the.
Oh, but one second. Going back to the medicine with the veterinary nutrition class that I snuck into, the Purina professor told, there was, I think, about 250 veterinary students, all white jackets, proud of their jobs, recite the following: animals don't need food, they need nutrients, and our food gives them nutrients. And they told them, chant this, chant this. So now you have all these highly educated kids being told what is true, what is not true, and once again, the source is controlled by the few. It's so fucked.
Yeah, and like, I mean, we talked about it before, but I got massively fucked by the pharmaceutical industry. And it's basically just, I mean, I was 23, starting to like lose a bit of hair, you know, very entrepreneurial. So problem, solution. I'm building my first company. I don't have time for this shit, right? There's this advertisement everywhere about like these pills that you can take that's just going to make you thousands of success stories. Probably works. Like I can trust, you know, it's a pharma industry.
It's proven.
It's the pharma industry. So
the studies are legit.
I mean, actually, it works, right? But you go to these centers, and then you have this woman with white clothes, right? And you're like, 22, I'll trust them. Like they're doctors. And then they sell you these freaking pills, which for me, like completely destroyed me, like completely had like cognitive impairment, visual problem, crazy anxiety, crazy depression. I became suicidal. It was fucking horrible. Like, and I mean, an amazing learning, because then, as I said before, like, how do you get out of that when the entire first industry is kind of like rigged against you? Because you're just trying to sell recurring revenue, right?
Bro,
pharmaceutical is just that.
It's a business.
How do I hook people forever on pills, whether antidepressant, sleeping pills, hair loss pills,
birth control,
absolutely
crazy shit with the birth control.
What's your take on birth control?
I mean,
and a woman would tell you, for example, in Asia, women are very against that. And I always tell them, I completely understand you, because my experience with these pills is the reason I got fucked is because it acts on your hormones, right?
Yes.
And so if you think like logically, the birth control is actually acting on your hormones. So like, I would never ask you to take this shit because it can only be bad. I even heard some story where there were women who would get married to someone when they're on the pill, right? And because the pill is acting on their hormones, so they are attracted to a certain type of man. But the day they're off the pill to get kids,
and they lose the
attraction.
It's insane, dude. It's insane.
Yeah.
But hey, your little 13-year-old daughter has acne. Let's put her on birth control to regulate her emotions and regulate her hormones and regulate her mood. And now you put 100 million women in the United States on birth control. And now what happens? It's usually a pill, which means what? 90% plus of it doesn't get digested. It goes to your urine. That estrogen goes into the water. Now you have 100 million women urinating highly estrogenated urine into the water supply. And water is just a recycled commodity. But the treatment plants, they don't treat for estrogen. Neither do they treat for testosterone. So now you have all these feminized men drinking this tap water, and you're asking why Alex Jones is realizing that the frogs are gay. And it all comes down to the fact that it's a big chemical warfare through the water and through the monthly recurring revenue of human beings. It's so insane.
You
dude.
Tweeted, I laughed a lot, but it makes so much sense. We're drinking bottled water, right? You said tap water is for NPCs. No tap water, no porn, no devil music. Can you elaborate?
I mean, they're the three things that attack your mind, right? So you're going to be attacked your mind through your eyes because it scars your memory. You're going to be attacked through the vibrational frequencies of music, so the messages that are being propagated, and then finally through the chemical warfare that attacks your mind. So calcifying your pineal gland. We can talk about vaccinations crossing the blood-brain barrier and adding heavy metal toxicity to your brain. Everything is designed to impair your ability to think impair your ability to reason and impair your ability to develop cognitive thought that actually questions the system. That's why people are just walking around like NPCs. They're walking around by default. They're walking around slow. And then sometimes I don't judge them, you know? It's like, okay, you're just so intoxicated with porn. It's fucking up your brain, frying your brain. You're so intoxicated with tap water and fluoridation. I completely get it. And now you're adding all this demonic, super controlled narrative music that is now conditioning you to fuck bitches, take drugs, and hoe around, because that just happens to be the cool narrative. So no devil music, no porn, and no tap water, to me, are the essentials of living a very good, clean, healthy life.
Do you think there is an actual agenda behind all of that?
Absolutely.
Or do you think that because we live in a world where profits at any cost, companies make decisions without kind of even understanding
it's all
consequences?
All controlled. All controlled. Even look at the example of, for example, you look at these big companies like Pornhub. They were doing like secret, like spy interviews with some of the executives. And for example, they would every now and then on the main feed or however these things work, they would add a transgender video, just simply to add that in case, you know, people want to test or experience a new thing. So they're controlling even sexuality at that narrative. Water. Well, water and food have always been utilized to control people, whether it's by limiting the water supply or by poisoning the water supply. So if you can dumb people down to control them, why wouldn't you? And you begin to realize we have all the shootings, we have all the initiations to gangs, we have the murders, we have families that are being broken apart because of people that cheat. Where are they getting their source of information? Who are they icons? Who are their role models? Musicians, celebrities. Celebrities are some of the most useful motherfuckers on the entire planet, but they're being used as puppets for the narrative.
So one of the ways to get out of all of that is one where would say
freedom of thought, bro.
Freedom of thought.
Asking yourself, why is it that you're doing what you're doing? Questioning everything, dude. You have to question everything, even if it's uncomfortable. Why am I listening to this music? Why, out of all the songs in the world that I could pick, why am I listening to fuck bitches, fuck hoes? Like, out of everything. If I could drink clean water, why do I choose to drink the tap water that the government is telling me is healthy? So you can look at this commercial of the mayor of New York City drinking tap water. And he's like, New York City has some of the best tap water in the world. And he runs it like an ad or a commercial. I'm like, dude, this is so weird. So fucked. And then you look at the music industry, and a lot of artists and record companies, they actually have contracts with prison complexes, because most prisons are private companies that actually monetize and they have quotas of how many inmates they're supposed to have. So now you're pushing gang music, now you're pushing violent music, and all these things have real world consequences that are just filling up the prison. That's why America's supposed to be the land of the free, but we have 2.5 million people in prison. That's not normal.
One of the things that's really worth questioning, the fiat system.
Crazy.
Obviously, the crypto podcast. I mean, very crypto focused. So we have to talk about that. But before talking about crypto, more generally, one of the ways that people who don't like crypto can kind of escape the fiat system is, I mean, not really the fiat system, but at least their 9 to 5 and the rat race is investing, right? And I saw you publicly said you were investing about 10% of your net worth in Meta around October 2022, so near the bottom, basically, which obviously in hindsight is the bottom, but you know, crazy high fear. Every time there is a market crash, or we think, oh, maybe it's 2001 happening all over again, like the mega bubble, everything's going to go down 90%, it's the end of the world. So you did that. Today, the S&P 500 is about near all-time high, NASDAQ not too far.
Meta all-time high.
Meta all-time high. So your call was definitely the right one. And for me, the really interesting fear, important concept for people to understand, and crypto will come into that, but it's the concept of being a contrarian investor. which is the most important concept in investing, right? If you want to make money. Obviously, it's easier said than done. How can someone become a contrarian investor?
Develop your own investing thesis and understanding that investing isn't gambling. So when I bought Meta at 80, 90, $100, I averaged within that price range. I wanted those prices. I knew that it was a fair value for the company. So I said, okay, I'm willing to buy it at this price. It's not because I'm a genius, but I looked at the fact that Meta was at 2016 prices. They're not the company that they were in 2016. So why wouldn't I pick up a fuck ton of Meta stock? I'm looking at MSRT. I'm like, okay, MicroStrategy is absolutely going to skyrocket because this guy is going to buy. We're talking about Michael Saylor. He's all in on Bitcoin. And we know that Bitcoin's going to go to all-time highs. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually.
Yeah.
So all you're basically buying is a leveraged play right there. And then you look at Carlos Salinas, who's one of the richest guys from Mexico. And he was asked, where's your liquidity right now?
He said that too.
He said MicroStrategy, and he said Bitcoin. So I said, who am I to oppose this guy's thoughts? That was my thesis for there. And now my next thesis, which is going to play true eventually, is PayPal. PayPal's at a 2017 price point. They generate $1 billion net every single year. One of every 4 e-commerce companies processes through PayPal, and it's still absolutely a behemoth. But it's at 2017, 2016 prices. So why wouldn't I pick it up? The risk-reward ratio just happens to be so much higher. So, in 2023. I only made 11 investments. I only made 11 trades. I don't trade like a savage. I'm not out here on the charts every single day. I want to make few high sizable bets that have long-term plays attached to it. So I don't want to be day trading because everybody knows that day traders lose.
Absolutely.
Everybody knows this. And once again, we talk about the productivity, the lagging indicator. I'm willing to sit on a position 1, 2, 3, 4, 10 years for one very simple factor.
Swing trades.
Yeah, for one very simple factor. I don't need the money.
Yeah.
Right? So when you don't overspend and you don't operate out of a place of greed or operate out of a place of need, you can start making better value-based decisions. And once again, I could have picked any stock, but it was something that I'm familiar with. I'm familiar with Meta. Yeah. I'm familiar with Shopify. Why? Because I come from an e-commerce background. Yeah. So Q4 is rolling around. I know everybody's spending money on Facebook ads. So I know that Q1 reporting about Q4 is going to be absolutely phenomenal. They're going to crush their reports. And they did, because they did every single year prior. So why wouldn't they do it this year? And it happened. Shopify took off. PayPal took off. And then PayPal didn't take off. Shopify took off. Meta took off. Microsoft took off. I made a massive $4 million purchase of Microsoft stock the same day that Microsoft announced a $10 billion investment to OpenAI. I said, well, I can't invest in OpenAI, but $10 billion is a lot of fucking money. So they're not just paying for whatever it is that they're investing in. They're probably investing in infrastructure, teams, scalability, operations. So I was like, this is a very good proxy, right, for me to invest into OpenAI because they technically own it now. And once again, Microsoft passed Apple for a couple days as the most valued company in the world. Yeah. And that V reversal was absolutely savage.
And what's really interesting is it's not rocket science. And we talked about that the other day. I was with Alex Vanevic here for 2 hours, and we talked about, it was more applied to crypto investing, but essentially being a good investor is you rely on a few pretty simple heuristics, which is, hey, we're back to the same price as a few years ago, but probably like they've been doing a lot of work. So they're probably much more advanced. So it's a good opportunity. And then, as you said, if you are experienced or an expert in a certain industry, you obviously, because you spend that much time, gonna have conviction. And once you have the simple heuristic coupled with your conviction, then it makes the whole thing much easier.
Yes.
And that's why for us, for both of us, Bitcoin and crypto is such a no-brainer, right? It's, hey, look, I mean, it was more like a year-ish ago. Like, oh man, it went back below previous all-time high, or like even like, you know, the all-time high of 2017, we were below that.
Crazy.
You're like, what the fuck?
Or like a
This is amazing.
$900 ETH.
Exactly. You're like, this is crazy. So it's just, yeah, it's basically that. It's some simple heuristics and the conviction. The conviction is the most important thing. And again,
And not just that, but it's understanding that, first of all, you're not always going to catch the bottom and you're not always going to sell the top. And I don't work or invest in order to pay for my bills, right? I invest to multiply my money. I have businesses, I'm making money in the real world that I get to deploy. So if my investment goes down 10%, 20%, 30%, I can stomach the drawdown. I can stomach certain losses just for the simple fact that I don't depend on trading in order to pay the bills. And if you're going to trade out of a place of desperation, you're always going to get fucked.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So you said you're doing this sort of swing trade, right? 1, 2, 3 years. In the crypto context, probably is going to be like a year and a half, 2 years swing trade. And that's a really interesting one because you said, I think it was on a podcast I saw, you said, I bought crypto, I made my money, I sold, right? Which sounds so simplistic, but most people in crypto in their first cycle, they make shitload of money and then they round trip everything and they get wrecked, right?
Yeah.
And so you have this like very simplistic, almost cold, rational approach to crypto instead of following the traditional, we're all going to make it, hodl, and then you get fucked. Can you tell us more about your approach, how you approach the crypto cycles to minimize the chances of round tripping all the money you made and get wrecked?
Well, I got round tripped in 2017, right? So I did
We'll get there.
I did 160 or 180x and I lost it all. And at the top, I was out here pulling loans. I went savage, right? And I did it the wrong way. And I was like, I'm not doing this again. But crypto is going to come back. So what do I have to do? I just have to have more money in order to deploy it. So I bought Ethereum during the COVID crash. It just made complete sense. I bought Bitcoin during the COVID crash. And then I started playing because I was involved in DeFi summer of 2019. I said, bro, DeFi is going to go crazy because I was part of the ETH ICO or the ICOs on the Ethereum chain in 2017, where basically you had the MetaMask and you would have to send ETH to an address and you would get their tokens in return. That was kind of how ICOs worked. So when, smart contracts started rolling out, DeFi started rolling out, I'm like, whoa, I'm going to pay attention to this thing. And then obviously I just happened to be in Clubhouse when CZ was talking about PancakeSwap and the Binance Smart Chain and how he wanted to compete with Ethereum. And then this motherfucker had beef with the founder of Uniswap. And I'm like, bro, when CZ's got beef with somebody, he's going to try and take them down. And what vehicle was the competition to Uniswap? PancakeSwap. So I just made a very big purchase of PancakeSwap, purchased 1% of the supply, and it worked well.
And so that's really interesting, the strategy, because a lot of people, they think I can put like $1,000 in crypto and make a 1,000x, or I'll put like 500 or $100 in like 50 different crypto and I'll become rich, right? But this never works. The strategy is more yours, and it was the same with me. You round trip once, then you're like, I need more cash. So I need to build a business or have a job to get this cash to then, once I have the right conviction and the right timing, luck is when preparation meets opportunity, right?
Yes.
I'm going to invest at that moment and then like I'm going to wait 2 years and make shitload of money. But because I invested a good amount of money, right? It's probably a better solution rather than what most people think, which is, I'm just going to make, become a millionaire overnight with like a random meme coin. I mean, obviously you can make a lot of money with meme coins, but like there is a few really huge success stories, but there is thousands that are not talked about, which is people who lost everything. Whereas like you can have a more rational approach, which is, hey, how do I have a business generating cash and I reinvest that? It's traditional investing applied to crypto, except it's kind of like on steroids, right?
Yes. And in my view, it's, the first bull run, you get kind of round tripped. The second one, you're following the calls on Twitter, but you're a little bit more clever. And then my third one, which is the one that we're coming into right now, I'm not even going to like looking at the charts, trading view, looking at CoinGecko. I'm not even doing that. Now I'm building, right?
Absolutely.
So so
Absolutely.
you realize that the upper side and the leverage in reducing your risk is in being involved in the ecosystem. So I went from being a gambler to being somebody that was like, hey, like I can invest in this. I got some money. I'm doing well. To now being like, okay, but the infinite upside is to actually be involved in the ecosystem, be involved with the projects. And I think that that's like the natural progression of a crypto journey.
Absolutely.
And bro, but here's the thing. The thing I love about crypto is that the upside is so good for the amount of effort and work that people put in, because
it's one of the highest leverage.
It's the leverage is
ever.
unbelievable,
yeah,
dude.
Really
You could be a VA on a Discord server and be absolutely loving your job, making money, getting alpha, getting calls, getting integrated with communities, getting exposed to new projects. The upside is so great when the time is right. Now is the time. Now the time is right. I've been telling people, dude, get in the crypto space, start building, get involved, meet founders, understand the future trends. So a couple of the future trends are the enhancement of the Ethereum virtual machine. So basically building layer ones on top of Ethereum, because now Ethereum's kind of monolithic. It's kind of like your settlement layer. So you have like Monad and different projects that are in that ecosystem. They're absolutely gonna skyrocket. I see Monad going to like 30 to 50 billion dollar valuation. It's going to be absolutely nutty prediction, but that'll happen.
What do you think about the project?
It's top tier.
Why?
The founders, bro, they understand what people want in crypto. People want high frequency trading with no fees, with low fees. So they created an ecosystem where they can bundle all of that and then deploy it to your settlement layer. And now instead of having everybody pay fucking $100 worth of ETH in order to have a transaction go through, now you create an experience that is actually nice. That's why Solana has become so popular.
Absolutely.
It's because it allows high frequency trading. And one of the founders of Solana was very specific. He said, we built this product specifically for people that want to trade, $5 on a specific trade, or $2 or $10. You can't do that on Ethereum. That's why Binance Smart Chain became popular, but Binance Smart Chain is centralized. Now Binance has like this government oversight. So that's kind of dwindling. The BUSD is no longer a thing. So now you have Solana taking over. Solana is absolutely crushing, not only because of Solana, but because they've done really good at building products around it, like the Phantom wallet, which is the best wallet that exists right now. You have Jupiter Exchange, which is kind of like your ability to trade in the best DeFi format possible. So now you see a lot of people that are making crypto relevant to what people actually want. The reason Robinhood was dope was because you could hop in there on your phone and in 10 minutes buy a stock.
Absolutely. User experience, which in crypto is so bad. But
it's getting better.
It's getting better.
It's getting super good.
On Solana, you said you had dinner with the founder of Jupiter, right? What do you think of the exchange? Do you think it's going to take over Uniswap? Do you think it's just for other kind of people?
Yeah. Jupiter Exchange is going to absolutely demolish. I was talking with him about his future plans, and I can't go into it, but the vision is beyond just your traditional, hey, I'm going to be out here buying and selling shit coins. The dude wants to introduce foreign exchange remittance. He wants to basically put all tokenized assets on and inside through the Jupiter Exchange. NFTs, DEX, it's going to be a behemoth. Uniswap will not be able to compete. No chance.
There's another project we have to talk about.
Tell me.
You wrote, the e-com kids came into crypto and took over Web3 in 1 year. Stop fading the penguins. Obviously I had Luca on the podcast. I also had James Wu, who is one of the key investors during the bear market in the equity of Pudgy Penguin. We had Alex, who is an advisor, Alex Vanevic, the founder of CEO of Nansen, who is an advisor, mega Pudgy Penguin fan. I'm a big fan. You also said there is no second best. There is no second best. And when you meet the dude, like it's so obvious, right? And also, because most projects are shit, right? There's nothing behind it. So if there's one who is like, hey, let's build something, let's create actual revenue that is not crypto geek related, but it's real world related, it's going to make a massive difference. You and Luca share similar backgrounds also, kind of a difficult childhood, drop shipping, e-com, crypto, and you live in the same place, Miami.
I live in Puerto Rico. He told me he told me he told me to go to Miami, but he was one of the first guys to move to Miami before it was cool. I just decided to go a little bit more south for tax purposes.
Why are you so bullish on Pudgy Penguins?
I mean, I'm an equity shareholder in Pudgy. It was not an investment in the project. It was me betting on Luca. So Luca used to run a lot of e-commerce for a lot of top tier influencers out in LA. And he was, making multiple six figures every single day. And I was able to meet a couple of the influencers that he was interacting with, talk about their e-commerce, and eventually connected with Luca. We had in 2019, we had the DeFi summer. And then I remember in 2020, we were sitting in the Ritz-Carlton and we didn't know anything about Uniswap, right? So we were out here figuring out DeFi, shit coins, and we've been in the crypto journey since the beginning. It was February of 2021, I believe. My dates kind of get confused at this point. It's been so long. When PancakeSwap first hit $20. That's when I got. Is it my tattoo on this side or is it on the other side? Okay, yeah. So I got the PancakeSwap tattoo. Yeah, those motherfuckers, they blessed me. But we had gotten a house. We'd rented a house in Miami after the Ritz-Carlton. We bought our first NFTs there. And then we created a group chat called Crypto Island with guys from the Cayman Islands and just ballers in crypto. And we started talking about NFTs and shit like that before it kind of became hot. And Luca posted this photo of a pudgy penguin. And he said one thing. He posted it. This is when it just launched. It was 0.1 ETH. He posted and he said, the Asian community is going to love this. And that was the thesis for him buying it. At that point, the entire crypto NFT bull run took place. Things went up, things went down. And then I get a message one day. I'm in Croatia. I get a message one day and I'm like, and it's Luca. He says, let's buy Pudgy. And I'm like, wait, what? And he's like, yeah, I just put out a tweet, 750 ETH. And I'm like, okay, sounds good. I messaged Cole as well through one of my accounts. And long story short, thankfully, through one of the Capital Club members who helped us broker the deal, we got the deal. And Luca just spearheaded the project. So I gave him some cash.
So you bought Pudgy Penguin with him?
Yeah. I think I put in $500,000 out of the 2.5. And because there wasn't a lot of liquidity providers, and we went to a lot of founders of the top projects, and they didn't give a rat's ass about Luca. They didn't bet on this guy. But Luca has a background of taking IP that is undervalued and absolutely blowing it up. So tossed a little bit of coin there, said, Luca, take it. And he absolutely demolished it. But had the project gone to what I believe it's going to go to, it's a multi-billion-dollar company, or if it would have gone to zero, it didn't really make a difference to me. My bet was with Luca Nets, and I'll continue betting on him as an individual because, like you said, it's not the IP that matters necessarily. It's not just the NFTs. It's not even the community alone. It's the people that are carrying it, right? It's the individuals that are running the project. And when you have somebody that, once again, understands sales and understands marketing and distribution, which are the two keys, you win.
He said the exact same during the podcast. So before, when you said that, if you can have the best project, if you don't understand distribution and marketing and sales, it's not going to, he said the exact same, right? It was the absolute most important.
In the
and
background,
no one understands that in crypto, basically. It's like
because like I said, you can have a great product, but if nobody sees it, it doesn't really make a difference.
Yeah.
So the e-com kid came in and just absolutely took over, and it just made absolute sense.
Where do you think Pudgy is going?
100 ETH.
100 ETH.
Yeah.
This cycle?
The cycle. I mean, it's you can no longer value it as an NFT company.
Absolutely agree.
It'll compete with the likes of Hello Kitty. It'll compete with the likes of Mickey Mouse. It'll compete with the likes of the highest IPs in the world.
And you have the premium of crypto on the top, which is like all the speculation part. If you're like, because there's a bull run, there's NFT bull run. So we benefit in the good times from the actual premium, crypto premium, which is pretty amazing. Is there another crypto project or community that you're super bullish on? That's out there today, right? Not something like super private or
Yeah, I mean that's out there today. My 4 bets are very straightforward: Pudgy Penguins, Monad, and Jupiter Exchange. To me, those 3 are just absolute leading fire horses. They're just going to trail the path for what it means to build high quality decentralized finance projects, what it's going to be to rebuild on top of Ethereum a good user experience for Monad, and then Pudgy Penguins, like I talked about my predictions for 2024. Pudgy Penguins will not only flip Bored Ape Yacht Club, it'll make the acquisition of Artifact Studios look like a peanut when it's all said and done.
So in crypto, we have these crazy booms and busts, right? And when everything busts. Like 2022 was really bad. And so even for me, I was a big Luna holder. I had like 7 million that turned into $5 in 2 days. And so when something like that happens, and I have some friends, like one who had 250 mil turned into like probably $500. When things like that happen, I mean, obviously you feel fucking stupid and you start to wonder like, hey, like, was it all just luck? All my businesses, all my investing, all that. So you need to kind of feel the pain, right? But there is something that's really important when you're about to kind of like leave or abandon to understand. It's kind of the concept. John Adams said, every problem is an opportunity in disguise. You said every problem is an opportunity, and opportunity is there all the time. Can you give me an inspiring example of a moment in your life where you thought that things were over for you, but then you doubled down on working your ass off, and later on, in hindsight, realized that in pain and problems lie the biggest opportunities?
I remember when I was poor, in the pocket, not the mind. I went into a Walmart and I had to call my bank because my bank account had overdrafted by $16 in order to buy groceries. And it was the lowest time in my life because I felt ashamed that I couldn't even afford groceries. And at that time, I could have gotten a regular job. At that time, I could have said, fuck this shit, I'm going to quit. I could have said, oh, this is another person's fault. But I looked at that situation and I said, I never want to experience this ever again. And the first thing that I did was buy the book, Reminiscence of a Stock Operator. And I said, I'm going to learn about the markets. And ever since then, it's been an upside. And it was that situation that made me feel disgusted with my current living conditions that instead of complaining, led me to change. And, you know, I would be in the bus. I would take the bus for about an hour to work, and then I would take the train for about another hour. And every single day, just learning the basics of psychology of trading. I don't do technical analysis. I'm purely a value-based investor, and I bet on people, right? So if you look at my investment plays, it's me betting on people, dude. I don't take credit for anything. I don't take credit for any sort of investment that I make. I just bet on winning horses, and sometimes they play off. So I bet on CZ, I bet on Luca, I bet on Mark Zuckerberg, and they don't disappoint.
So in those really hard moments, it's how do you take the pain and turn it into fire in the belly, basically?
You don't have a choice, bro. When you're at the bottom, what do you have to lose? When you have nothing to lose, you have nothing to lose. How much? Like how many? You're gonna live 80 years of your life. How many years of that life are you gonna live broke? I want to experience wealth. I want to experience the good life. Now, I've already experienced this side of reality, the shitty stuff, having to eat ramen noodles, sleeping on couches, sleeping in my car, pressure washing basketball courts, cleaning toilets. I've done this shit. I don't want to do it for the rest of my life. I experienced it. I'm grateful for it. I'm thankful that life gave me the opportunity to learn these things. But it doesn't mean that that's what I want to live for the rest of my life. So it's not, oh, me, poor me, dude. My life has been just blessings on blessings on blessings. I'm glad I wasn't born in some country in the middle of Africa or in the Congo where I have to mine lithium out of the ground, or that I'm getting bombed in the middle of nowhere because of my beliefs, or because the United States decided that they wanted to free my country, right? So just the fact that I have the opportunity to wake up, I'm healthy, it's a blessing. And I think that the fundamental shift is two things. One is a good attitude. Wherever you see productivity, you're going to see a person with a good attitude. And the second one is gratitude, being super grateful for what I have. When you're grateful, life is going to continue blessing you. When you're ungrateful, when you are selfish, when you are blaming others, when you're negative, pessimistic, life will simply project what you give it. So I wanted to be positive, and I always believed in myself, and it worked out.
And in those moments that are really hard, actually, that's when you kind of, because as you said, you don't have the choice. That's when you're actually the best, like the better version of yourself. Because I'm not sure about the expression in English, but in French, we say you basically...
Say it in French.
Le dos au mur. You have basically your back against the wall, right? Which means you have no other option. And so when you have no other option, because there is no other option, you make it work. And that's why I really encourage my friends who are like, hey, I have this job, but I want to start this company. Just take the leap. Because when you take the leap, you have no other option. Like as long as you keep your job and you have this money coming in, like you have the option, right, of failure. Whereas when you start, it's like, okay, now we always say take the leap and the net will appear. You have to build your plane while you are falling, right? Otherwise, you're going to crash on the floor. And it's really in those moments that the best shit happens. In those moments that you turn these really bad moments and where the opportunity, where the problem is an opportunity in disguise. It's exactly that.
And you know, I was talking with the former president, the son of the former president of Singapore, last name Ong, and obviously he comes from wealth. He comes from a family that has been able to really educate him. And he said every problem is an opportunity. And it's how you see the situation that determines the action that you're going to attach to it. Are you going to see a problem and be like, well, I can't change? Or are you going to see it and be like, I can do something about it? Where there's problems, there's profit. And where there's problems, there's business. And if you can identify that, you can make a whole lot of money.
We talk about business, making a lot of money. Obviously, we need to talk about women. Because you have really interesting takes on women. So the first question is, in relation to making money, are women a hindrance for men to become rich?
The wrong woman, yes. The right woman will empower you. She will fuel you, she will inspire you, and she will push you towards becoming a better version of yourself. I've only been with one woman my entire life. I'm still with her. Been over 10 years. She was with me when I had nothing. She would drive me to work. I had no car. So when I started having things, or, you know, I got everything that I wanted and I became somebody, how could I let her go? You know, so she believed in me. She trusted me when I had nothing, and she valued me when I was poor and insignificant. And now that I've achieved some sort of success in some way, shape, or form, it's only fair that I bring her along for the journey. So my perspective is very simple. Find individuals that will empower you. And if you can find a partner that loves you for who you are, but also empowers you to become a better version of yourself, stick close to that person, be loyal, be honest, be kind, be authentic, and keep those people around, because there's not too many people in life that are gonna want the best for you. And if you can't find a good woman, if you can't find a good partner, it's usually a reflection of you, because you attract people. And if you attract poor people, well, it's most likely a condition of you. If you attract hoes, it's most likely a reflection of you. So if you need to, or you can't find somebody of high caliber, of high quality that polishes you, stay away from it. It's funny. I was going back to Meow. He was like, he was asking me today, he's like, should I be dating a ton of girls? I'm like, no, just like find one person that just empowers you and elevates you, and stick true to that individual. Now, it's different philosophies for different people. Anybody can do whatever they want. But for me, it worked out extremely well. And it all comes down, and I'm not married, but it all comes down by one thesis. There's a verse in the Bible that says, he that findeth a wife findeth a good thing. Not he that findeth a woman that has the potential to be a good wife, but he that findeth a wife findeth a good thing, and finds pleasure, or finds honor in the eyes of God. So you also begin to study wise men throughout history, and most of them were corrupted by women. So I understand how tempting it can be, but I also understand that if you find people that can empower you, it can take you to the top.
So what was your advice to Mew? Because especially in today's world, and that's something that Andrew talks about, which is as a man, right? The game is very different. As a woman, you can, I wouldn't say as a woman, the dating game is easier. It's much easier to get the guys you want, but then it's not easy to keep them and to see who is full of shit or who is really serious, right? As a man, it's kind of harder because most of the women, they go for the top, 5% or 10%, 1% men. And so for a man, it's more about how you build kind of respect, right? How do you build your personal brand, and how do you build your life so that women respect you and you attract them instead of the opposite, having to chase them.
I agree.
Especially if you're building things, you don't have time to date like crazy. It's impossible.
I agree.
Just that it's a job in itself. Just dating around.
Yeah, I mean, it's imagine you have to entertain 10 women. Like that's a lot of maintenance. It's like having to entertain 10 multiple different things. It can be for you. Like if you can handle it, so be it. If that's what your cup of tea, that's when you enjoy it, perfect. But for me, it's just not. It's not an ethos that I've operated or that I've enjoyed. And I've talked to Andrew about it. We haven't talked in a while, but I've talked to him about it. I was like, hey, when are you going to settle with one girl? And we chuckled about it. We laughed about it when I was out in Romania. But yeah, he has a different perspective about it. It's totally fair. He's become highly successful with his philosophy of life. So mine just is a little bit different, but to each their own. Yeah.
What should be the priority for a man? Taking care of your family, wife and children, or pursuing your mission at the cost of not seeing the ones you love and care for?
Live a life of balance. Why not both? Why not both? Why not, divide your time into all the things that you enjoy? Why not divide your time and your attention into multiple areas of life that are valuable to you? If, you didn't have a good father, well, you have the opportunity to become a good father. If you had siblings that took care of you and empowered you when you had nothing, bring them along for the journey, right? If your mama's not retired, what the fuck are you doing driving a Lamborghini? So it's all about perspective. There's priorities, and different people have different priorities, but I think that there's a novelty in finding balance and understanding that there's a beauty of sharing success with your family. There's a beauty of seeing your family winning with you. And even though they may not help in the sense of your business, they took care of you for fucking so long. You owe it to them to give them a great life. And yeah, I think you can have both. That's that. And I'm a living testament of it. My parents I pay their salary. My parents work within my organization. They're basically retired. I'm not going to retire them. Oh, just go play bingo all day. They don't want that. They want to be involved in what we do. They want to be involved in the ecosystem. They want to see us develop. So why not take care of them? And I think that there is a beautiful balance in taking care of your friends, taking care of your family, taking care of your loved ones, and still pursuing your dreams and your goals. I don't think that you have to sacrifice one or the other to have the other.
What do you think about the more kind of materialistic side of things? Watches. I mean, I know you like watches, cars, all that stuff. Do you think it's a moment that everyone who kind of like builds wealth has to go through to realize, oh man, Luca was saying the same actually. I was like, oh man, I'm so fucking stupid. I bought this car there. It made no sense. Like, what's your view on that?
It all depends on what you enjoy. I kind of went into the watch game after NFTs because I was like, oh, cool. Like I can start collecting. I got interested in the space. I kind of had some boys that were reselling watches. So I built a $1.25 million watch collection, but I only wear 2 of the watches. So it's like, I'm there sitting and I'm like, was it a little bit of a waste that I have all these watches sitting in the vault? Did I like, okay, it's a good investment. Yeah, that's cool. But do I need these things? And then I have $1 million Pokemon collection. I'm like, okay, like what the fuck am I doing with the Pokemon collection? And then I bought a $4 million house and I'm like, there's people coming into my house every single day. And I have gardeners and I have cleaners and it feels like a hotel. So I sold the house. And then I was like, I want to be light in baggage. I want to be able to move. I want to have that flexibility. So I started getting rid of a lot of my material possessions to simply be able to free up my mental real estate. Because when I had a small fleet of cars, I got rid of them because maintenance, focusing on making sure that they're taken care of. Same thing with the real estate. I think real estate is a great investment vehicle, but I don't want to manage properties. I don't want to have to worry about maintenance. Yeah, other people can do that for sure, but it's just not my cup of tea. I want to be light of baggage. I want to be able to be free flowing. I like to travel the world. I like to stay in hotels. Like I like to be free. And that means that sometimes material possessions hold you down from achieving great things. So I want to stay away from things that I really don't need. Miyamoto Musashi famously said, get rid of things that are of no use. So if something doesn't serve you anymore, and maybe it served you in the past, you don't have to be attached to that thing. And so if he says, and he's a great samurai philosopher, but he says, don't do things that are of no use. And I begin to explore that philosophy and I begin to only do the things that are useful. And I begin to not realize that my success is attached to materialistic things. They don't determine me. They don't determine my identity. Yeah, I understand the perspective of playing the game. You know, you sit down, you have a $50,000 watch. Somebody may look at you in a different way. But I've never sat across from a billionaire, and I've sat down across 6, and they look at my watch and be like, I want to listen to this guy because of what he's wearing or what he's doing. Most of them, you could see them walking down the street, and you wouldn't even recognize them as billionaires.
Very low key. Absolutely. The most successful people, super low key.
Because they have nothing to prove.
Absolutely.
You know, one of my business partners, we have a crypto fund, and he invested in Bitcoin sub $1, 2011. But he dresses like a bum, you know, and he's my boy, but he has nothing to prove. And you look how he travels, very light, very simple, easygoing. And that just shows a level of confidence that money does buy.
Absolutely.
It's a level of confidence that money actually buys, but you see it exemplified through the simplicity of life. And Leonardo da Vinci famously said, which is one of my favorite quotes of all time, he said, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Being able to simplify your life in such an incredible way that it's so easy to live.
I think there is this meme that I saw the other day. It's so funny. It's basically poor, no car. Middle class, average car. Rich, Lambo. Wealthy, no car. Basically, it's exactly that, right? And so you kind of, and the common topic that I have with most people who come on this podcast who made, most of them, they made hundreds of millions or billions. And they're super humble, super chill. And most of them, they went through this kind of like entire loop, right? Or this kind of like life round tripping or happiness round tripping, which is, hey, I thought I needed all that stuff. I'm building towards that. I'm making all this money, just to realize that it's back to like the basic things. And it might sound like a cliche or, oh yeah, the basic things make you happy. But if you can't be happy with a coffee, you're not gonna be happy with a jet, right? So it's just like all these people making the same realization that at the end of the day, yes, obviously you want to have a minimum amount of money, which we talked about before. We all have goals based on our lifestyle and all that stuff, right? But there is a threshold or a certain amount above which doesn't make any difference, and happiness will never come from that.
Yeah, and also understanding that it's not just happiness, but your identity isn't attached to those things. And sometimes I talk about like my crypto losses, but my identity isn't even attached to my crypto losses. It's not attached to my crypto wins. It's not attached to my investment wins or my investment losses, what I have, what I don't have. It's simply, am I pursuing my fullest potential? Am I being authentic with myself? Am I an actual person that is true to my values? And it goes back to what I said in the beginning. When it's all said and done, I'm laying on my deathbed. Can I look at myself individually and say, you did well, you succeeded, you didn't compromise your values? There's a verse that says, what does a man prosper if he gains the whole world and loses his own soul? Nothing. So I don't want to gain everything and lose myself in the process. And I think that there's a massive virtue in accomplishing that. And that's why I don't attach my identity to my wins, to my losses. I'm just trying to experience life. I'm trying to learn like everybody else. We're all on this planet trying to figure things out. And if we can be authentic, that none of us have it all figured out. We're all just trying to play this game the best we can. Then you can walk with a little bit more graciousness, a little bit more truth, and be light of baggage and focus on pursuing your fullest potential.
Maybe as a good wrap up, what's your biggest fuck up?
In crypto or in life?
I'd say life fuck up.
There's so many.
That's a good answer.
They keep
That's
flashing.
good enough.
They keep flashing. I'm like,
This one. Oh no, this one.
I could have bought Bitcoin at a cheaper price. I could have not sold the Bitcoin. I got fucked with this play. But at the end of the day, bro, I'm just happy to be alive. Thank you for having me on the podcast. I'm grateful to be here, and I look forward to part 2 somewhere around the world.
Thank you so much, man. You're not just an entrepreneur, but you're a role model for many. And our generation obviously needs more role models like you. So from all of them and from our listeners, I'd like to thank you for what you're doing, for putting yourself out there. As you said before, talking truth comes with a lot of criticism and even maybe some threats. And you still do it, right? Without caring about all the threats and criticism that come with it. So
because it's the price, brother. All of them. Aristotle's, Plato, all the greats were once revered as fools. They were burned at the stake. They were laughed at. They were even crucified. And that's the price you have to pay for the exploration of truth. And that's the price you have to pay to unplug people from the bullshit system. And if I got to take a couple arrows for the team, so fucking be it.
Wow. Thank you for reading this tonight, man. It was an absolute hell of a conversation.
Absolutely, bro. Thank you.
Awesome. Cool.